ain't gonna get like y'all. I ain't gonna get like y'all. No, I'm a blast off. Never wanna get like me.
Hello.
Never wanna get like us. I'm a blast off.
Everybody. This is the Fourth Line Pod. I'm Ozzy,
I'm Caden.
And I'm Ian.
broadcasting to you live from Fourth Line headquarters. We got a good episode for you guys today. Hopefully you can settle with just us three. We wanted to talk about the topic of all topics, what you've been waiting for. What happened to BYU Hockey? All right, so that's our teaser. First, we got to update you on the ACHA real quick. So here we go.
So Utah, an absolute powerhouse in the D2 ACHA. So in the D2 rankings, we got Weber at number 2, Utah at number 3, and Utah State at number 6. And, just to put in perspective how crazy that is to have 3 Utah teams in the top 10, I don't think people understand how much talent is actually, in these rankings. And the fact that Utah has 3 teams in the top 6 is just incredible.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, now we're looking at a very real possibility that Weber gets an auto bid to nationals, which is that's never happened before with a Utah team. And
that happened last year. This would be
I guess
they did.
This would be back-to-back years that Weber would get an auto bid, which is crazy.
Which is crazy because you even rewind 5 years and it was there were teams struggling to get to regionals in Utah. It was BYU, we didn't get to go to regionals for a year, and we had to really claw our way back in that last season to get there, right?
Yeah. And Utah as a state, I don't think was respected very much in the ACHA because it was there was one Utah team that would get into the regional tournament, not even get an auto bid. They would get into the regional tournament, and we were lucky to get a second team in. They would be we were a really high seed when we got into regionals both times. Utah State's been a really high seed. Weber's always kind of been that top program in Utah. And then it was BYU, Utah State kind of battling it out for that next spot into regionals. And then if you weren't the top 2 teams in Utah, you're not getting into the regional tournament. Now we're looking at it, and it's all 3 teams, Weber's probably going to get a bye. They're just going to get an auto bid to nationals. And then you have Utah and Utah State that are going to be high seeds going into the regional tournament. It's pretty crazy.
And it's really cool to see, especially with Weber, because for the few years we played, they were always a first semester team. They always played really well that first half of the season, and then the second half they had some guys struggle with grades or whatever, and they'd kind of struggle. You just kind of see their stock drop, and it's cool to see the consistency, and the University of Utah's D2 team has come a long way in the last few years. Nick Fornelius, the coach, has done an incredible job. But really, I think the big thing is the Montana teams and the Utah teams, iron sharpens iron. That was the thing is the Utah teams have been going up to Montana for the past 10 years, and Montana's been coming down here, and it's just when it's best on best, it's gonna just cause everyone to elevate and raise their level of competition. And even UVU, they're holding their own a lot better than they have in the past, and it's just cool to see.
Yeah. I think UVU actually is playing Utah tonight at Peaks, I think. I think it's a home game. Mm-hmm. So interesting to see second semester, teams that lose 1 or 2 pieces due to grades or, whatever else is going on in their lives. And second semester, it could be a different story with these teams. So, props to all 3 Utah teams for starting out strong. I'm interested to see how they're buzzing towards the end of the year when it really matters.
I will say I've seen some of you guys put in the work. Grayson Frazier was at stick time, 6:30 a.m. this morning. So the boys are hungry. They put in the work. I saw a lot of guys.
Yeah, we saw the Clarks at a stick time over Christmas break.
They're hungry. So
well, and especially if they stick around, which I think a lot of them will. It's just gonna take some time, like all things do. But it's just been cool to see. I ran into Dylan Hale the other night at the hockey club game, and I was just asking about the U because I haven't watched the U's D2 team play, and I've just been seeing they've been winning these games. It's crazy, And I was just are they the real deal? He's like, oh, dude. He's not respectfully, skill wise, I think Utah State's a better team, but he said that team just goes to work. Like they just roll up their sleeves and they're gritty and they're nasty to play against and they just work as a team and like they're just unreal. And so that's just really, really cool to see just all these teams, and we very well could see 2 teams at nationals this year, which is just it's
It'd
just
be crazy.
The thought of that is just insane to me.
I think too, like going back to UVU for a sec, like and you talking about ironing, sharpening iron. You within 2 hours of UVU, you have 3 teams to play that are in the top 6 in the region. Like they're gonna get better playing these teams all the time. Like just going an hour down the road, and so I'm excited for UVU because it's like that's how you get better is playing those sorts of teams.
Totally.
And so like they're gonna have a lot of games where they're playing these top teams and they're just gonna get better and better and better. Like iron sharpening iron, and like who knows? Next year we got all 4 teams in the state in the top 10, like in the rate, like it'd be unbelievable. Like,
well, you can see that like the schedule UVU is playing this year versus years past. Like I think they've come to realize, hey, playing these teams that are like a Division III team that's not going to help us get better. It's way more fun to go and win games, but also it's like long term as a program. When you've got these guys like the Clark brothers, when you've got a Trosty on your team, it's like, okay, let's stretch. Let's play up so we can stretch to raise the bar, and that's just been really cool to see. So I look forward to seeing where they're at next year. I mean, just the changes we see over the summer and everything. So let's talk Division I, our one and only team.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, just 2 things to clarify. First is the regional tournament and the national tournament. So with the regional tournament, if you are ranked 1st or 2nd in your region, you get an automatic bid to the national tournament. So you don't have to go to the regional tournament where you would have to play and qualify to advance to the national tournament. So Weber is currently in that 2 spot where they would get that auto bid that we talked about earlier. For teams like Utah and Utah State, so the seeds that are 3 through 12 go to the regional tournament. I'm actually not sure where they're going to be held this year. We'll need to look that up.
I think it's the U.
Is it in Salt Lake?
It's Salt Lake.
Oh man.
Oh, actually, you know what? I actually think it's up in Logan. As crazy as that
Dang.
sounds, I'm pretty sure
I would have been interested in going to Salt Lake. I'm not going to Logan. But if those that are listening, an unreal tournament, regional tournament. We've been a couple of times, and it's been a blast to play in. It'd be pretty sick to go up and watch. I would be down to actually go up and watch it. Freaking hate Logan, but
unreal hockey. Like,
well, yeah. and the thing is, it's crazy about it is like getting to the nationals through an auto bid is so much easier. Like regionals, it's like, how many wins do you have to have? Is it 3 or 4?
It depends. The 4 higher seeds, I think, get a bye, and then the 8 lower seeds all play each other. So you're playing at least, like, you could play 3, potentially 4 games if you're a lower seed.
Like that's crazy, and it's not against cakewalk teams, and you're playing back to back to back to back nights.
Yep.
And like that is a lot, and yeah,
it's 4 days, 4 games of hockey. It is brutal on the players. It's brutal on the coaches, but
goalies especially.
Yeah.
It's like,
our last year in Colorado, when we were in the regional tournament, like we'd stay and obviously watch a lot of the games, and every single game you're just like, holy, like just the amount of talent. Even 3 years ago now when we were playing the regional tournament in Colorado, like I remember watching like UCLA versus
Texas A&M.
Like that game was unreal. Like you remember we stayed and watched, and it was like, dude, like every team here is legit. Like it's just such fun hockey. So
for those that are listening, that's what the regional and national tournament look like. It is an absolute blast to play in. Unreal to watch. Just really good hockey. Lots of physicality. I mean, guys are sacrificing their bodies to make a play. Like, it's one thing to play a regular season game and watch those, and those are always fun. But playing in a single elimination tournament where it's do or die. I mean, we had that We had that first
we
game.
we learned the hard way.
I was just thinking, like, our first game, our last season when we played Arizona State. I mean, we went down 4-1 at the end of the first period, and it was – I didn't know if we were going to claw our way out of that or not. And then freaking tied it up, sent it to OT, and then we got the winner. Like, it was that moment that I look back, and I was like – we were so hype on the bench, but I remember shaking their hands after the game, and like you just saw like the seniors crying, and it's like that was almost us.
Yeah.
Like
we're kind of going a little different direction here, but especially our first year. So our first year for me and Ian, we made it to like the championship game of regionals. Like we're a game away from going to nationals, and we end up losing. I don't even want to say who, but a team that we beat 6 times already that season. And that was one of the hardest moments of my life, like watching those seniors cry and like realize it's over. And I can't watch any senior night. Like I don't care if it's high school, college. Like I don't even know any players on the team, and like I'll still tear up a little bit, like thinking of like those moments. Of,
I hate to break it to you. Utah State invited us to their senior night, so you might have to show up to that and cry. You might not cry about.
Nah, I got some.
I got a couple birds I could show them.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is too that like, I mean, ACHA is club hockey, and so I think the reason that teams care so much about nationals is if you make a nationals run, all of a sudden that is really good on your team's portfolio to make an argument to your university. Hey, you know, you could consider making us an NCAA program. Like Arizona State, the whole reason it happened was because they went to nationals like 3 or 4 years in a row. And they finally just pled the case. They had a donor that was willing to help them make the jump. And we're starting to see that more and more often. And I feel like just the natural conversation where this is going is a few weeks ago, UNLV and ACHA Division I team played against Denver. The University of Denver, the national champions of last year. Like a bunch of club boys went into Denver, and mind you, Denver was missing their coach, right? Denver was missing David Carl, and Zeev Buium was at World Juniors. But other than that, like the internet will try and tell you that this isn't a legit win, but their starting goalie played. They were rolling their top 2 lines. Everyone played. There were no scratches, and UNLV found a way and won in a shootout. Like, what does that mean for club hockey?
So I'll say this really quick. There's 2 things that I want to talk about in this situation. One is Denver is the reigning national champs of NCAA hockey, the highest college hockey that you can play. It's arguably up there with the juniors program. Like, a lot of NHL talent is coming from the NCAA now.
Well, and honestly, probably the best all-time college hockey program. Like, they've got more banners than I think anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
so and people were trying to argue, like, oh, like, the Denver players didn't care about this game. They weren't playing hard. They weren't going all out. You got to – this is the first thing that I want to say. You got to be kidding me. Players that are looking to play in the NHL, you're telling me that they don't care about a little game? That's a load of crap to me. Those guys care about winning. They want to win. They want to win battles. They want to win face-offs. They want to win the game. Like, they want to win at every single aspect. Why? Because that's their nature. There's a reason why those guys are playing at that high of a level. So people making the argument of, oh, Denver wasn't trying, or, oh, they're missing their coach and their top defenseman. It's like,
that's not hockey.
No.
Right? Like, maybe basketball, it's like, okay, I could see how, like, oh, it's just a scrimmage, it's whatever. Like, I'm not even going to put my real shoes on. But it's like, dude, these guys, it's hockey, it's the principle. Right? Like, you're not gonna let some club kids come into your house and beat you at home on your home ice. Like, it's just not what you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, like, I was watching the game. Like, Denver was trying. Denver was physical. Denver was fast. Their goalies really struggled in that. There were just some really fluky goals. UNLV went up early, and Denver had to claw their way back into the game. And they did. I mean, they were down 4-1 and then like 5-2, 6-2, and then they came back and tied. They scored 4 goals in the third period to put it 6-6 to put it in OT. And then obviously Denver lost in overtime, well, in a shootout. But it's like Denver cared about that game. So the people that are trying to make that argument, it's garbage. The second thing that I want to say is people are trying to like put down the ACHA and say, oh, like this win means nothing, blah, blah, blah. To a degree, I agree with that. But UNLV is wanting to make that push to a D1 program. They are very, very close, in my opinion. I'm not saying that roster is going to be the one that's going to take them to D1. They'll probably, recruit some actual D1 players and skills coming out of juniors and whatnot. But that is a program that should be getting looks. Now, if you want to talk about other D1 programs like Mary and those, like they're good programs, but they're not going to compete against an NCAA team like UNLV. So I think there's very select teams in the ACHA D1 program like UNLV, Liberty, maybe Ohio University, and Adrian University. Those 4 are the only ones that I would consider like, yeah, you can kind of start seeing them sneak into the NCAA level and potentially getting a program there. The other ACHA teams, they're not there. And we recognize that. We know that as ACHA players ourselves. Like, those guys are more skilled, better at hockey than we are. But there's certain programs that if you are able to play there, like UNLV, they're getting close. They're knocking on the door of NCAA hockey. So you can't take away that win. It is a big thing for the ACHA, but it doesn't speak for all of ACHA. UNLV is a special program.
And I think the biggest thing, too, like people don't realize is how little NCAA D1 teams there actually are. I think it's like 40 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like ACHA, there are so many good players in the ACHA because there's such little actual NCAA teams. And so it's like you get so much talent in the ACHA because of that. It's not like football and basketball and these other things where there's like a million D1 schools that you can go play at, right? And so it's like there's not that many teams, which means a lot of kids are funneled that have a lot of talent. Like, it is so hard to go play NCAA D1 hockey. And so it's like, of course, like, those guys are the best of the best. Like, that's why there's becoming so many NHL draft picks coming out of the NCAA because there's so much talent and they're all funneled into that small group of like 40 teams. And I think the cool thing is even Ryan Whitney got on the pod and said, like, if you're not considering some of these ACHA teams and like going NCAA D3 to go play in the middle of nowhere in front of 10 fans and not considering going playing ACHA hockey in front of a big time school like in the Big Ten and stuff, it's like there's something wrong with you. Because it's like I look at our college experience versus like some guys I know that are playing NCAA D3, and our college experience was so much better. Like,
literally, the girls didn't care. Like,
everyone
like,
thinks
I
I played.
Like, make the comment like, well, technically speaking, I'm for this first club. It's like my wife didn't care. Like, I'll just say it, you know.
My wife's coworker thinks I played NCAA D1 hockey. I'm not gonna correct him.
Oh, I think most of Tooele County thinks I played.
Well, and that's the thing that I want to acknowledge, like, from a club hockey player. Like, dude, yeah, if we would have gotten on the ice with Denver, we would have gotten smoked, right? And we know that. It's like we don't belong. Like, when we say, like, club hockey's college hockey, it's not saying we are as good as NCAA Division I teams. It's not. That's not what it means, at least not in my opinion. I think what it means is, like, hey, show some respect, right?
Yeah, there's talent.
There are guys on like, these top 10 Division I ACHA programs that, like, all that happened is they had a bad age out year in junior, or they didn't get a look on their NCAA program and they wanted to go play somewhere, right? Like, as you know, with hockey, like, so much of it is luck or even just confidence. Like, if a coach just tears your confidence down, like, you can turn into a totally different player and lose who you are, right? And so it's just going to be really cool to see, especially with this change in the NCAA rules, like how the Canadian Hockey League, like, junior players can come down now. All of a sudden, you open up that market to more talent. You've got to think, like, how do you spread out that much more talent? You add more teams, right? Like a school like UNLV, when they make the jump, I could see that this might be crazy, but the University of Utah, like, give it 5-10 years, having an NHL team here, things are gonna happen, right?
Well, and to kind of go off of that, make that transition, like, to our listeners, there is an ACHA D1 program in Utah. So we talked about University of Utah, Utah State, Weber State being ranked in the 2, 3, and 6 right now in the Division II of ACHA. We have one ACHA Division I team in Utah, which is University of Utah. They have 2 teams. And they're currently ranked 9th, which is huge because they've been floating between that like 15 to 11 range. They quite haven't cracked the top 10 recently. And to my knowledge, in recent years, like it's been a while since they've been ranked this high.
Nationals, I think it's been a long time.
Yeah, and now they're ranked 9th in the nation, which is insane. Like to have your D2 program be ranked 3rd in the West region for D2, and then your D1 team be ranked in the top 10 in the nation, like it's just an awesome opportunity for Utah to now make the case of we are legit as well. You know, we're working to get to UNLV, to Adrian, to University of Ohio status.
Well, and having a legit women's program, like the women's team, they're kind of having an off year. It's like a rebuild year for them, so they're not ranked right now in the top 15. But the U's women's team, I forget her name, but the senior captain of the team was selected to go to the college hockey. No, it's not the Olympics, but the college hockey nationals against other nations. So
Yeah.
it's essentially the NCAA doesn't let their players go to represent America for this. And so it falls to the ACHA, and all these club players go out and they represent America. And she was picked for Team USA. I don't believe she's from Utah, but it's like these type of patterns you see are those are the teams that make a jump. When all of a sudden you can say, hey, Title IX will bring up our women's team and a men's team as well. You know, we've got an ACHA pipeline. You know, there's fans that love watching our games. We got a rink that's decent size. They probably need to make a jump somewhere else. But, yeah, it's going to be really, really cool to see in the future. And I think for us watching this, we can't help but think about, like, there's one team missing here that would have been in the mix. You know, like, as you guys know, we all played at BYU. I honestly think, I'm not a BYU guy. I'm a Utah fan. You're a Utah fan too, right?
Nah, I've been a BYU guy my whole life.
That's okay. Yeah, I don't know about you, but me personally, I never would have gone to BYU if it weren't for hockey. And like I actually, like on my mission, Coach Roger Barris reached out to me and like invited me to play. And the first time I saw the email, I laughed. Like I was like, no way, dude. Like BYU historically had a terrible team. I remember being up at the U when they played BYU, and it was literally like it was like 17-0, like just brutal. And me and my dad laughed about it all the way home because we're like, Utah's the best, dude. Like this, you know. And playing there was just such an incredible experience. And as many of you know, like when they pulled the program, everybody just asked why. And so we kind of want to just give you the full story here, at least from our perspective, you know, which is kind of the only perspective. So where were you guys when you found out about the team being pulled?
Well, I remember, I think, I want to say we got like an email or something that like said like, hey, like, and it was like in the middle of summer, like it was kind of weird. Like none of us were in town. And it was,
I thought someone died, to be honest.
yeah, like I was the same thing. I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like something happened because it's like we're having a meeting like next week, like be there, like, and I was like, what? Like, what is going on? Like, yeah, like did something happen? Like what's going on? And I remember we had the Zoom meeting, and yeah, like just like heart absolutely sink into the floor. Like it took me a while to like actually believe it. I'm like, like they say, there's no freaking way. Like that's not happening. But I remember I was at my parents like during the Zoom meeting, and I just like same thing, like went up to my parents and told them, and just like didn't even seem real. Like there's no way. Like, what? And,
Yeah. No, I remember that too. Because what happened, so to give some background context of the BYU hockey team and their association with the school. So we were technically a third party with BYU, meaning we weren't incorporated or included as an intramural or even an extramural team. What happened was about, I guess it's been 18 years now. It started off as a club known as the Ice Cats. They were granted the use of the BYU logo and name through a contract. So they weren't associated, they weren't affiliated with BYU at all, but as long as the coaches and the players agreed to live by the honor code and the players were matriculated students taking classes at BYU, they were allowed to use the name and logo, and that's when we became the BYU Cougars. Originally, we were the Ice Cats before that. And so for 15 years, we had that contract renewed, no issue. And so the email that Caden was talking about was basically certain individuals within BYU, they're employed by BYU, and they're in charge of intramural and extramural activities.
Say their name. No, I'm just kidding.
Julie Franklin, send an email that said, hey, we're not renewing your contract, meaning we weren't going to be allowed to use the name and logo of BYU, and if we don't have that affiliation, we're not allowed. This is going to ACHA rules now. If we don't have that association with the name and logo, we're not allowed to compete in the ACHA anymore. So we needed that contract in order to stay involved in the ACHA, to be eligible, but BYU didn't want to do that. And to be honest with you, I understood why BYU didn't want to do that. They're basically allowing a third party to use their name and logo, and if something were to happen that, tainted the name or was degrading or whatever, that would look bad on the school. So I understand where they're coming from in that aspect of it. The thing is player-wise, coaching-wise, we abided by the honor code. Our coaches were really strict with us about it. The Ice Cat board, we had a president with members that helped run the financials, scheduling, practices, team equipment, all of that kind of stuff. Everybody abided by the rules of the honor code. None of that was broken. There were rumors thrown out that someone did something that wasn't true.
I would argue that we followed the honor code better than any school-sanctioned NCAA sport at BYU.
Oh, 100%. Including the intramural and extramural programs.
Not to get religious, but it was like our coach was a seminary teacher. Like, we had team devotionals. We had non-members that, they still prayed with us before games, and they lived it. Like, we took it serious because we wanted to play, right? And it was devastating. And the thing is, we all kind of understood where they're coming from. I think the whole reason that BYU was able to go from the Ice Cats to BYU was because the league changed the rule, and they kind of appealed to the school, being like, hey, this is all we need. We're self-funded. All we need is your permission to use the name and the logo. But when they took it away, I think we understood, like Ian said, I could see the risk there, but it's so can we just become a club then? An intramural club, can we let that happen? And we started to meet with, two of the captains and Coach Pitcher and our trustee met with someone from the club committee, right? And you were in those meetings, right?
Yeah, it was me and Jacob Eisenstadt with Brian Boehm. It was the three of us. And every month we met with, there were 3 members, our employees, within the department. So every month we met with them, and they just kept bringing up excuse after excuse. And we climbed that mountain. We overcame everything they threw at us.
One of them was Title IX, which was a big one. We had a girl that wanted to try out for the team, and we're a men's program. And regardless, there are some exceptions. Like, it's not with the league. It's not necessarily a rule. Like, you could have a girl on your team, except in this particular case, we knew who this person was, and she was not good enough to make the team. Like, it wouldn't have worked.
It was a safety issue with her being on the ice. Put it in perspective, she played rookie in D-League in the Peaks Adult League, and she was trying to try out for the BYU team where we were, ranked every single year at regionals, and 2 of the years we were ranked highly and nationally. Like, we were considered a top 20 team in the nation for 2 years. So just to give some context, we told her we appreciated her support and we would love to have her come out on the ice, but for her safety, we were not going to allow her to participate in drills and be on the ice while, we were battling for positions on lines and getting ready for the season to go. It was a safety issue for her. It was nothing like we didn't want her to come out or anything like that. But yeah.
And so that was something that was raised, was this issue of Title IX. And BYU, for those of you that had ever gone to one of our games, we averaged anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 fans on any given home game, unless it was an afternoon one. And so, financially, we didn't need money from the school. That's why we never asked. And so our whole solution, our idea was, if it's a Title IX issue, we'll start a women's club. We knew we probably wouldn't have enough to make a women's team, not in the first few years at least, but we said, hey, that sounds like a great way for some of the boys to meet girls too. We'll teach them. We'll do our own class where they can join the women's hockey club. And we were totally for that. And we're hey, if that's the problem, not that Title IX even applies to club teams, because it doesn't. We're not getting any funding from the school. Yeah. But we were hey, we could try this, right?
And that's another thing that just baffles me, is there was a lot of interest from girls. The BYU hockey college class, it is hard to get into that class. It is full every single time, and it's a hard class to get into. I taught it for 2 or 3 years. Almost every single kid said it was their favorite class at BYU.
And it was almost exclusively taught by BYU hockey players.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was all BYU hockey players. And, and that's the thing. Me and Ian taught it. Nate Baker taught it. And it's 2 of the best dudes I know. Literally the best dudes that I know. And that's why that class was so good and why everyone loved it, is because you have guys like Nate Baker and Ian Thunhorst running this class. And that's why everybody loved it. That's why everybody wanted to come to it and learn and get better. And everyone loved hockey. And everyone came to the BYU hockey games because they loved the game of hockey. And there were so many girls who were if Title IX is a problem, I would absolutely love to play on a team. And so that's just another thing where it's they didn't care. Their answer was no the whole time. And they didn't even care to realize oh my gosh, our BYU hockey class is filled to the brim every single semester. Crazy. It just, it boggles my mind.
It even boils down to they have no problem selling hockey jerseys in the bookstore.
They still sell hockey shirts and jerseys.
They still sell hockey shirts and jerseys, and it's if you're okay with the sport, why aren't you okay with the sport?
Yeah.
Pick a side, and I think that's been the hardest thing for me this past season. BYU has an incredible club lacrosse team, and they won the national championship, and they got honored at a BYU football game. Not that I would even care, because go Utes, but it's just frustrating, the double standard, because and I know the lacrosse boys and they're amazing, and it's the clubs are way better run, way better guys at BYU, because they're not playing for a scholarship, they're playing because they love the game, right? And it's just frustrating because it's we are no different than they are.
Go ahead. I was gonna say I'll tell you the difference, because there's more in the meetings that I haven't brought up yet. But
I'll just say this: so mine and Ian's first year, I think it was
2018 to 2019.
2018 to 2019. Our team was absolutely unbelievable. I think what was our highest ranking that year?
9?
Yeah, we're ranked top 10 in the country. selling out every single home game.
It
We
was
were
nuts.
It was the most unbelievable year of hockey with the most unbelievable group of guys that I have ever met in my life. What we had was incredibly special. And the crazy thing about it was the basketball team sucked and the football team sucked that year. Like, we were the ones on fire, and that's why we sold out all of our games, was because nobody cared to go to the basketball games or the football games. And so BYU's like scrambling. And that year, they're like, oh, let's put the BYU hockey championship trophies in the Wilk. Like, oh, let's put them in the BYU newspaper.
Let's put their jerseys up and
Yeah,
parade them around.
We got so much support that year,
Yeah.
and like it was the coolest thing ever. Like, on campus, like, you were like the cool kid on campus. Like you would wear your BYU hockey stuff, and everyone's like, dude, that game was sick last weekend. Dude, I can't wait. Like it was crazy, to like say the least. And like the support from the school was awesome. Like, I remember our first year, we were at the parade, like the homecoming parade, and they put us right next to the cheerleaders. I'm like, holy freak, boys, I'm big time. Let's
All
go.
of a sudden, Caden was like, the jazz dancers. Like, what? Jazz who?
But I mean, it was the most unreal experience ever. And like, it was so cool. Like, obviously that was my first year of playing ACHA, and I'm like, dude, this is sick. Like,
Yeah.
all this support from the school, like,
So
the amount of
Delicious.
fans.
So Delicious was a team sponsor. Like, we got to go in and
unreal.
create a team drink, and if like students went in to buy that drink, they got a free ticket with the drink as well. Like, we just had so many awesome opportunities our freshman year at BYU, because we had support from the school. The students were behind us. The community got involved with us as well, and when we say we got support from the school, we got recognition from the school. They never gave us any financial support. They never gave us anything special on campus besides putting up our jerseys and the trophies and the Wilk, which was awesome. I'm not trying to take that away at all. But, like, to go back, like, to have that kind of experience, and then the next 3 years we don't get any recognition from the school after that, was pretty frustrating. And when we were in those meetings, that was something that was brought up, is they were trying to say, well, we don't have space for you guys to like have lockers on campus to keep your athletic gear. We don't have space in our gyms because all the other sports teams are using them. We don't have space to include you guys and give you hourly time to go in there and work out as a team. We don't have the money to help you guys out to like pay for your ice, pay for your games, and all that kind of stuff. And in those meetings, we told them, we don't need any kind of locker room space or locker space on campus. Everything that we needed was at the rink. We had our own locker room. We had our own.
Arguably, I think one of the sickest locker rooms in the ACHA. Like, it was a sick locker room.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then we had our own gym at the rink as well that we were allowed to use. We had our own space upstairs where we had Hannah come do yoga with us and stretch us out to keep us healthy and avoid injury and things like that. Like,
A lot
we
of
had
bleachers.
we had everything that we needed, and we told them, like, we don't need anything from you. And we told them, we don't even need anything financially from you. Like, we're self-funded. Students were paying to play on top of their tuition. We never got any kind of scholarships or anything like that. But like, with the support of the families and fans and friends coming to our games, since we sold out so much, I mean, we started to generate revenue where we were getting new jerseys every single year. Like, these are sick. Like, our jerseys were gross. We're getting new equipment, helmets, gloves, things like that. That was all self-funded, and we told them that. Like, we showed them the
Team
financial
dinners,
numbers.
I think, too. Like, but like our last year, like, it was like we'd go on the road, we were getting team dinners paid for. We were
No more gas station dinners right before the game.
Yeah, like nice hotels, like started flying to games and stuff.
Well,
Like,
that's what was so frustrating, was it was like we weren't asking for anything. We were just asking to exist.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, can we just keep doing what we're doing? You know, like, and you guys, you can put a fly on the wall and come watch practice and come be in our locker room. You can put mics on players. No one's swearing. You know, like we're living it, we're doing it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
sitting here laughing.
Maybe this side of the couch wasn't swearing.
I mean, there were pretty strict rules. If you got caught swearing, you sat a period. So
That's true.
I never had to sit. I'm just gonna say it.
I never had to sit.
I sat once. Okay, I sat once.
'Cause I didn't get
Can I
caught.
say
No, I'm just
Can I say real quick? One of the funniest things, I think we were playing Utah State. I'm sorry to kind of distract, but on the topic, this is one of the funniest things I've ever experienced in hockey. Ian like starts swearing at some kid, and the kid goes to our bench, looks at Coach Pitcher, and said, "Number 18 said the F word," which may not help our case, but that's too funny of a story not to tell.
I had so many kids tell me they were going to tell my bishop.
Oh man, but it's just it's frustrating because it's like, I mean, what else do you want?
Oh yeah.
You know,
Well,
like
no,
what?
yeah.
Like
And like we're talking like okay, like we swore every once in a while, but
well,
like
videos of the football team
Yeah,
surfaced to them swearing.
in the locker
It's a
room.
competitive sport.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying like yes, we need to abide by the honor code and things like that, but like it's still a high level that we're playing at. It is still a competitive sport. Like in the moment, like
No one's golfing here, okay?
you don't swear when you golf. I think I swear more when I golf.
Ian's like, I don't have the honor code when I golf. That gets real bad.
I'm not on the BYU golf team. Come on. But like at the end of the day, like so here's the thing. Brian Bohm, our team manager, incredible guy.
Yeah.
I mean, just an awesome guy. Also a phenomenal team manager. I mean, that guy, he had the books down with the financials. Like he's in the meetings, he showed like, here's how much we're making every single game. Here's how much we ask our players to pay. Here's where all this money goes towards. All the coaches are volunteer. I'm a volunteer team manager. Nobody on the board gets paid. All of that money gets funneled back into the program with new jerseys, paying for the ice, getting us premium practice times. Like, he was awesome. And here's the crazy thing. So this is the difference of why, because they were gonna cut BYU lacrosse. That's probably on the down low. That shouldn't be said, but I'm at the point where I don't really care anymore. BYU was gonna cut the lacrosse team. The reason why they didn't is because there was a donation from one of the dads of a player for a couple million. I'm not going to say the price, but he wrote a check for a few million, and that's how BYU bought Provo High, that's across the street, that they're converting into the med school and that field, and that's why the lacrosse team gets to play on that field. It was a donation of a significant amount of money of why the BYU lacrosse team was able to stay. And I'm happy for those boys. I'm not trying to take it away anything from the boys or the girls lacrosse team. I'm so happy that they have a team and they get to play and they get to compete and enjoy the sport that they love. Brian Bohm also had certain people that were willing to write significant checks with those numbers.
Well, and sorry, I'm not gonna like spend money for other people here. I know a certain owner of a certain NBA team and NHL team that likely would have written a check.
No question.
Right? Like, I mean,
No question.
buying basketball players for the college now, like for BYU now, it's like, I'm sure that's, and I think that's what makes it so hard. Is I think, for those of you listening, we all know it will be back. Like, some of you are thinking, it's not the end of the world because BYU will change their minds. They will. I know they will.
Yeah.
But the problem is, BYU, for like the first 15 years of the program's existence, were terrible. Like, so bad. And it took that long to start to convince all these players to come to BYU, to play there instead of going to Utah State or these other programs. And by the time we had these Ammon Andersons, these Jacoby Clarks, coming in, it was over, you know. And we even had like our next recruiting class that was coming in.
Yeah.
Like I would honestly say we were going to be even better that next year, and it just got cut off.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what hurts the most. It's like, it's not the fact that I didn't get a senior year. I got to play 3 really amazing years and had an unreal time with like the best dudes I've met in my life. But it's just the fact that other kids went on missions and, you know, like they did the right thing and they sacrificed their future in hockey. The fact that they don't get to come back and have that, you know, it's not pro, it's not like crazy, but have that experience to play in front of their fans and in front of their friends and their family, it just makes me so sad.
Well, just to go back to like the whole like honor code thing, like obviously we're like joking around and stuff, but like I don't want to get too religious here, but like I have felt the spirit more in that locker room than a lot of times like I've ever felt anywhere else. Like the amount of cool experiences we had like with the gospel in that locker room was incredible. Like, and we did so many things. Like every single time we went on a road trip, we did a fireside. We went and did volunteer work somewhere. Like went and canned food. Like we did all sorts of stuff. And then we would do a fireside with the wards there. Like I remember we were in Idaho. What part of Idaho is that again? McCall. We were in McCall, Idaho, a small little town. And we did a fireside at their church. They had to open up the doors and open it up to the gym because it was so jam-packed of people at that fireside. And I have, like, listening to my teammates bear their testimonies and, like, hear their testimonies, it was one of the most spiritual experiences that I've ever experienced in my life. And there was a church packed full listening to these BYU hockey players bear some of the most unreal testimonies that I've ever heard in my life. And I think that's the hardest thing because hockey, there's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of drugs and other teams that I've experienced. And so there's not a whole lot of places for kids that are LDS to go and play hockey and like be in a great environment. But the one place where you could was BYU Hockey, and they took that away from thousands of members that love the game of hockey. And obviously me and Ian, we coach a lot of youth kids, and like at least once a month it gets brought up to us of like asking us like, do you think BYU is going to come back? Like there are so many kids whose dream it was to go and play for BYU Hockey. Like there's a picture of me in my junior high yearbook wearing a BYU Hockey shirt, like in my yearbook. And that little junior high kid who was wearing his BYU Hockey shirt got to go and play for the team, like live out one of his dreams, and like have like BYU Hockey seriously changed my life. And we've all talked about where like it's changed our life. Like I'm not going to go into too many details, but I just had a super cool opportunity come into my life. And I kind of was like going through of like what got me to that point. And I track it down to Jacob Eisenstadt texting me, asking me to come play hockey for BYU. Like that's what started. And now I have a career because of that. And like just the fact that like they took that away from so many kids, and like obviously me and Ian, we have our hockey program that we do of hundreds and hundreds of kids, and like they all look up to us. The whole reason it got started and why we had success was, oh, that's pretty cool to go do private lessons with a BYU hockey player. Like that's how we got our start, and that's where we ended up turning Utah Elite Hockey into what it is today. And like we have changed so many kids' lives because of that name of BYU Hockey, and now it's taken away, and there's a lot of kids who don't get to experience what we got to experience. And it just pisses me off beyond belief. And I hope that there's people at BYU who are listening to this and like hear that, because it is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I got some bars to drop. Okay, listeners, don't judge me for this because there's like weird assumptions and stuff, but so my job, I'm a seminary teacher, and I know like if you know what seminary is, it's like the Mormon class at high school, and typically the teachers are like kind of nerdy and weird and stuff, but that's what I do for my job. And my last year at BYU, for the last 4 months of the season, I was teaching while playing, and I had students come out to my games, and like you know, the whole reason I started teaching seminary, like doing this work for the church, was because of Roger Barris, our coach at BYU, who was a seminary teacher. Like I had always admired him from afar. Like his kids are just unreal guys, Cody and Alex, and he coached at Viewmont High School, and they just always beat the crap out of us at Brighton. And it was hard to like hate them because they were such good guys.
Two of the most incredible guys I've ever met.
Literally they would go put like 8 or 9 goals up on you, and they were like nice about it. They're like, and not even like fake nice.
They're just
real nice.
Is respectful.
And Roger, like coaching that team, I just always thought like, man, it'd be unreal to play with those guys. And that's why like I ended up at BYU, because I was like, dude, this is my chance to play with them. And when I found out Roger taught seminary for his job, like I was just like, no way. Like, how, like, is that it? That's how you, like, is that your secret for just being different, like visibly different? And I just remember going and trying it. Like, he encouraged me to go give it a try, and I loved it, and it like led me to my job. My teammates introduced me to my wife. I've said this before, but like, what's so hard for me is that last regionals tournament we went to, I don't know if you boys remember this, but they canceled Sunday games because we said we wouldn't play. We're like, we would rather forfeit. Like, we will lose and go home. Like, we'll play the first 2 and we'll lose and go home, but we're not playing on Sunday. And the whole tournament, they gave everybody Sundays off because of us.
Yep.
And that's what's so hard is like the religious part and stuff, like, and I want to say is that, just technically speaking, the church and the school are 2 different things, so you don't get them twisted. Don't be mad at the church for what the school did, but like, it's hard because that's the whole like idea, like that's the whole reason BYU has sports, is it's supposed to give these young men and young women a chance to play the sport they love while representing something a little bit bigger than just a team.
Exactly. Especially club sports, intramural, extramural sports. It is an outlet for us as students to get away from class and from the homework and from the projects and the assignments to enjoy our experience at BYU. That is the whole purpose of clubs. And for BYU to turn it into, and I understand it is a business. BYU is run as a business, but to turn it into something where we overcame every obstacle that they threw at us and every concern that they had of actually bringing us on as an extramural team, and basically for them to say, you're not going to bring us enough money where it's worth it for us to keep you around, because one, as a club, Title IX does not affect that at all. Title IX only affects NCAA. 2, going back to the girls thing that we talked about, Coach Pitcher found enough girls to put a team together. We had enough girls that said yes, that we could have put a team together, had helped them with practices, found a couple games for them. Like, there was enough interest that we could have done it, and BYU said no. Then that was basically the end of our meetings. Of if we're not going to bring in enough money for them to make it worth keeping it around, they weren't going to keep us around. And that's why lacrosse got to stay around. So it's really unfortunate that it was run that way, because it's exactly what you said. Clubs at BYU are meant to give us the best experience while we're at the university studying. We are a student, also athletes. Student comes first, but it's part of the whole experience. Like, I never would have had the memories, the joyful times, the brotherhood, the family that I made over 4 or 5 years at BYU if it wasn't for the hockey team. I would have gone to that school, taken my classes, and left, just going to the little raves that were thrown every holiday and watching the football games and basketball games. Like, that's all fun. I'm not saying that that's not, like, a great experience. It is, but it is a different experience when you get to continue to play a sport that you love along with receiving a great education at BYU. And that's the toughest part for me. It's like, I'm super torn. I have a bad taste in my mouth of BYU because of that whole experience of cutting the team, but I'm also very grateful for my education. I wouldn't have changed a thing. So it's just tough. Like, it's just tough that they see it the way that they do and that we weren't good enough to keep around. Because at the end of the day, that's what it really was. When we lost to Metro State at regionals that last year, that was our last game when we got knocked out. It was within the same week that Julie Franklin sent an email and said, don't come knocking on our door. They're not going to meet with us anymore. So for months, for an entire season, every single month we met with them. We talked about all those obstacles. We gave them solutions. We figured everything out that they needed us to. And then as soon as we lost our last game, they cut ties. That was it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was the end of conversations. They didn't want to hear it.
And that kind of leads us to where we want to finish. You know, that's the story. And I know you're probably thinking, like, that's it? Like, so what's the why? And it's like, well, I guess that's what it is. Or at least that's the impression we were given, was because we weren't going to generate revenue, we served no use to the university. And we just wanted to end with, I mean, we don't get tons of listeners or tons of streams on any of our pods or on our episodes, but everybody knows somebody, right? And if you know someone in the club sports department, like, we just want you to know that there are people that would step in to coach right now, like tomorrow. Like 3 of them are right here in this room, you know, like there's people that would step in to run the program. There's players on campus that are dying to play, you know, that are living the honor code, that are like insanely talented, you know.
There's so much talent.
So much talent. They're just rotting away in a men's league.
Yep.
Right? And so if you know someone, if you know Ryan Smith, if you know, I don't know, if you know Spicy Tuna, like, get this video where it needs to go.
If you know Julie Franklin.
Egg her house. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
TP is fine.
we just really hope this gets to where it needs to go, because it really did mean the world to us. And I remember just after the announcement was made, there were so many past players that made comments too, like, BYU Hockey meant so much to me. You know, BYU Hockey got me through my mission. You know, BYU Hockey's how I met my wife. And it's just, what a loss, right? And so yeah, that's our episode. That's all we have for you guys. This is the Fourth Line Pod, signing off.